This is Secret America.
Welcome, everybody. I am Jack Danger, along with Jay Gatling. Jay, how you doing today, man?
Doing awesome, Jack. Ready to rock and roll.
Excellent, excellent. For a second there, it kind of seems like your internet started freezing for a second. Can you hear me really well? Excellent.
I hear you
Excellent.
perfect.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't want any problems today because we have a very, very special guest. I'm talking one of the brightest political minds of our time. We've had Dinesh D'Souza on, who's a bright mind, but this man, Mike Benz, is without a doubt one of the most brilliant people that you will ever hear from. So we're going to go ahead and bring in Mike right now. Mike, how you doing today, man?
Hey, great. Thanks, guys, for having me.
No, we really
Awesome,
appreciate
Mike.
it.
Yeah, Mike, what a pleasure to have you here. And you know what? Let's jump right in. I just want to, we had the news today with Doge that's basically saying Doge is kind of gone, disbanded, not a central entity anymore. So from your time, your experience, what, with your understanding of how this stuff works, how the blob fights back, what happened here?
Well, just to clarify, I'm reading this post from Eric Doherty, who said breaking Doge is not done as the fake news wants MAGA to believe. The leadership has been decentralized across multiple offices, and Doge is still terminating billions in contracts. Just yesterday, they announced up to $1.9 billion in contract cancellations.
Really?
And so, but I do think that what's happened is there has been a structural change. Doge, initially, it was one of these things that I think Democrats and a lot of kind of blob monsters laughed at, that this was this toothless kind of advisory council and wasn't really a part of the government. And then very quickly, there was a kind of political jujitsu that Elon pulled by actually making Doge a government agency within the White House. And giving it a formal White House office allowed it to play this interagency role where, because it was a centralized extension of the White House, it could park up at all of the different agencies, inside of state, inside of USAID, inside of DHS, et cetera. And it was incredibly powerful in those first few months. I mean, I can tell you from my contacts in the agencies, they told me it was a total game changer. And I know this from my time as a political at the State Department. You get in day one, even as a high-ranking senior official, you get basically told by the careers at your orientation about all the ways that you were powerless and do not mess with the system. I mean, it was basically in your orientation. You get told about all the unions who can oppose you. You get told about all the ethics and inspector general ways that they can come at you. You get, and you're surrounded. You're completely surrounded as a political. I went over this, I think in your last episode, you guys were talking about Cash and Dan and what they're up against in the FBI. And for perspective, we have 4 political appointees to the FBI. There's 38,000 career employees. So it's 4 versus 38,000. Those are very,
because we were going to actually ask you about your defense of Cash and Dan Bongino. So that's perfect that you brought that up. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. But the at the State Department, for example, there are more political appointees just because every ambassador, every assistant secretary, every deputy assistant secretary, but there's also more employees and contractors and subcontractors. So you're still up against approximately those same odds. And there's really nothing you can do as a political against this mass of careers other than when the White House itself puts down the hammer of its force. And the White House just has so many things that it needs to do battle with. The State Department is not the only agency that it is focused on, and it takes a political capital drawdown to confront the careers, because these careers are half Republican. And they will be, faithful to the Lindsey Graham side of the kind of legacy George Bush dynasty neocons. And so only in the case of very, very extreme times can you get the White House to have your back at the State Department? And Doge completely changed that because it was direct access to the budgets. It was direct, and they had their liaisons in the building. And so for a short time, Doge actually made the State Department work the way it's supposed to work. The careers are supposed to serve the politicals. That is at the bedrock of our political process, which is that when the people vote for a president, the president picks its personnel, and then the careers are supposed to answer to the new foreign policy set by the politicals. And that was completely destroyed in Trump 1 with the revolt of the careers and the insufficient political clout of the White House. And Doge, I mean, I would get calls almost every day from different parts of the State Department saying, oh my God, this Doge thing is a complete innovation, because the careers now have to observe the chain of command, or else they get cut. The politicals just walk over to Doge, and Doge can just take out whatever, essentially the paychecks or the careers of the careers. And so, and I think a lot of that relied on the heft and clout of Elon himself. Now we're sort of starting to enter what I would call speculation territory.
No, but it's good speculation, because when Elon left, you almost heard nothing about it anymore.
Right. Well, now, I guess when you look at the kind of political rom-com buddy-buddy bromance story from January to April, it was, you have to remember, that was at the time when the cabinet hadn't even been filled out yet. You had no Senate approved. I mean, all you basically had coming into February was Marco Rubio, who was approved 99-0 in the Senate. And then you had a very long, drawn-out process for everybody else. By the way, I think Rubio has done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And surprised me, to be frank, with just how I was hopeful but skeptical. But he has completely blown away my expectations.
But don't you find that weird, though? I mean, this man he went through the process like that, 99-0. I mean, I would find that weird, because they fought against everybody else, yet this man went in with a smooth process, and he's doing a good job. I mean, the two don't compute,
Every Democrat, except one abstained, 99-0. And a lot of that was because I think they expected him to be a Chris Wray type
establishment kind of guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Another James Comey, right?
Of course, right. I mean, they were this was Marco Rubio was very much a part of, for his career up until just quite recently, was very much a part of that Republican, intelligence statecraft blob that had been the bane of Trump's existence during
Gang of Eight, like a Gang of Eight stuff that, coming from that quarter.
Right. And in recent years, he's completely reversed that. He's basically declared illegal immigration, I think now, to be a human rights violation. And he even personally authored a pretty epic manifesto on the right of a sovereign nation to repel illegal immigration. And to his credit, when I think at a recent hearing, when one of the Democrats who voted for him in the Senate confirmation process said he regretted his vote for Rubio, Rubio came out and said, well, that makes me happy to hear. And now, who knows if this is lining up for a 2020 presidential run against J.D. Vance, or potentially a ticket. I think clearly there is a kind of competition over who is the heir apparent to the Trump dynasty. I mean, it'll be 15 years of Trump effectively coming into the 2028 election. I mean,
and he's the head of MAGA. So who's going to take over the MAGA movement, really? But whatever the motivations are, he's put a lot on the line, taken a lot of risks, You're right.
lost favor with a lot of blob friends to do the right thing consistently, whether that was the South Africa refugee situation and declining to have a U.S. presence in South Africa because of the human rights violations there, to what he's done with the illegal immigration issue, to what he's done with cleaning up the censorship network within the State Department, which was absolutely massive. Now, one thing that is definitely missing is disclosures, and I have to hit this because it's been bugging me. I mean, all year, but it's kind of come a little bit to a head for me personally. This week, I was clipping some of my old ex-subscriber private streams. I have this kind of secret stream series for my ex-subs, and I was going through one of the streams that I did on going through the WikiLeaks State Department cables from 1973 to 2010. And I was mining it for all the George Soros references. I have a kind of project to kind of put together the interplay between the government agencies like the U.S. State Department, USAID, Department of War, the intelligence community, and major private foundations like the Open Society Foundation and their associated hedge funds.
And you're doing that's your project? Is that like an octopus type project?
Yeah. I mean,
wow, that's cool.
Well, it's a big task, and what frustrated me, and I wanted to do a video on this earlier, but I think I'll just say it here, which is it's frustrating that in order to get transparency about this, I need to go into WikiLeaks cable archives, which are incredibly incomplete. It's basically Henry Kissinger and a couple of other, it's not even complete State Department archives. They're just from a handful of people that Julian Assange got these leaked documents from. And I mean, it's bombshell stuff that's in there. It's the inner workings of the public-private partnership relationship, which sells out U.S. foreign policy for the personal profit of hedge fund magnates.
Do you want to reveal any of those bombshells here, or are you waiting for your
I'm happy to, but I just want to complete this point, which is that
of course.
We're in a rare moment where we have a Republican, nominally America First executive branch. We have a Republican majority in the House of Representatives. We have a Republican majority in the Senate. We have a Republican majority in the Supreme Court. And the fact that I need to go into hacked cables from 2010 by Julian Assange, who was prosecuted, during the first Trump term under the Espionage Act for this and other things, in order to get transparency about my own government workings. It's very frustrating to me that the State Department is not doing this. I want all relevant State Department cables during the Biden term, which completely weaponized the State Department on in every inch of the globe, whether it was what they were doing in Brazil, what they were doing in Hungary, what they were doing in Poland, what they were doing in Germany, what they were doing to create the EU censorship law, which targets American companies, and the fact that these records end at 2010 and are incredibly incomplete. I have to wonder what they're actually doing at the State Department, because you need to go through these cables in this history to even understand how do you set U.S. foreign policy. You need to understand your inheritance to even know what strategy to formulate in the present. And my fear is that there is a kind of that there's no coordinated effort to do that, and that the clock will run out. If Republicans lose the midterms in 2026, you're going to have blockage points in Congress to stop publication of SBU, sensitive but unclassified documents. You might still be able to have the ODNI and the president declassify classified evidence, but frankly, a lot of this is unclassified, which may be harder to actually publish because you run it through different chains of command, and there's no unilateral declassification capability like there is with Tulsi at ODNI or the president himself. And we're in this moment now where we have the opportunity to reveal the Library of Alexandria, the kind of holy books that have been growing dust over decades of American intelligence and statecraft activity. And since the day one executive orders were to end weaponization of the government, I think that this is the most important thing this government can do, is to give the voters transparency about what their own government was doing. And I think the failure to do this has, in the past, I should say, because I was very, very hopeful up until about May of this year, because there was just tons of stuff being posted and declassified and posted by Doge. They would, it was very thorough. You
Yeah, it was
had
basically a Doge
JFK
clock every
files.
day. A Doge clock every day telling us every day what they were doing, and then that's
Right.
gone.
Every day they were working around the clock, basically for free. You had the JFK files, which I thought were completely epic by Tulsi. I learned an incredible amount about not even the JFK assassination, but frankly, just about the entire CIA, Department of War, State Department, National Security Council, state of mind. And I mean, we had incredible revelations, again, not declassified until March 2025, about the National Security Council and the Central Intelligence Agency planning to drop biological agents appearing, man-made biological agents appearing to be of biological origin, by working with essentially the souped-up gain-of-function Lyme disease ticks grown in the Rocky Mountain lab, the same one that would get DARPA funding for COVID-19 in 2018 under Tony Fauci, and then the I think it was the Fort Meade biolab that the CIA was plotting in 1962. But these are incredible revelations, and then it all seemed to stop when Elon left and Doge appeared to lose much of its institutional clout. I think a lot of that was because the cabinet began to be filled out, and all of the fiefdoms within the agencies began to re-fief themselves, rather than having kind of Elon largely running the show with Trump's blessing. And so my fear is that when Elon left, the sense of urgency left. And now the slower pace of wins has led to MAGA infighting, because instead of everyone talking about the great things that we're doing and what we're going to do next, it's a lot of retro introspection about everything from Israel to who will inherit Trump in 3 years from now, not even focused on what we're doing this week, because there's not as much wins to report domestically because the pace has slowed down so radically. And can I make one more point on this? I'm sorry to take up so much oxygen.
Absolutely.
But I was going to do a standalone dedicated video, but it's just on my mind. I can't stop thinking about it.
This is perfect. Go ahead.
The Department of Homeland Security ran the first ever domestic censorship office in the United States, in complete blatant violation of the First Amendment. If folks remember, in April 2022, there was the Disinformation Governance Board that was set up with Nina Jankowicz at the helm, and then when she stepped down, Michael Chertoff. And that was shut down in large part because Chuck Grassley in the Senate Judiciary Committee published 36 pages of internal files, basically a 36-page document from a whistleblower within the Department of Homeland Security. Wow. From their Office of Mis, Dis, and Malinformation. That was a formal office. It was called the Office of Mis, Dis, and Malinformation. And it kept going for the entirety of the Biden term. That was not shut down. The Disinformation Governance Board was. MDM, Misinformation, Disinformation, Malinformation, was not shut down.
Really?
What I want to know is, why the hell do all we have on the Office of Mis, Dis, and Malinformation, why the hell in 2025, November 2025, do all we have are a set of internal whistleblower documents from a senator on the Senate Judiciary Committee from 3 years ago? Why haven't all of the files of the Office of Mis, Dis, and Malinformation, every email, every text communication on a DHS government phone, every internal analyst memo, all of their external engagement with the social media platforms, why isn't all of that public now? Why, just like with the State Department situation, where I need to go back into Julian Assange's hacked or leaked State Department cables to try to figure out what George Soros's relationship with the State Department is, and when our own State Department is not disclosing that, why? Same with DHS. What are the folks at CISA doing if not showing? Like the whole driving thing we elected this to do was to end this weaponization, and to provide transparency so that we can name and shame and stop something like this from ever being set up again. Frankly, it's in addition to the humankind benefit that has, that also I think is a big win to show the voters the corruption of the Biden administration and what Democrats with kind of never Trump Republicans were doing. This is like a win all around, and it's like not even this sort of Excalibur is not even being picked up out of the stone.
It makes you wonder what's in there. I mean, and I saw your video that you did with WikiLeaks, and you said at first you kind of were looking at the 1970s stuff and be like, oh, well, this is, and then you're like, wait a minute, what is this stuff from the 1970s that I need to look at here? Like going all the way back. And I just found that interesting that you like that far back. And like you said, that dictates the policy going forward. And that's why it's important stuff to know. Like you build that kind of the blocks of how this happened.
Right. Well, and part of that is because there's two levels of accountability. There's the criminal justice side of it, which is, prosecuting people for illegal acts. But frankly, much of the corruption is not illegal. It's a scandal. It's completely immoral, but there's no law against it to prosecute someone under. And because of that, I think there has been less attention to it. Like, for example, the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker scandal, the fact that she is evidently one of the most successful traders in world history, despite probably never having opened an Excel spreadsheet in her life and having probably very little financial literacy.
It's her husband, Mike. Paul Pelosi's the expert. He's the expert.
Well, it's an obvious case of insider trading, right? It's insider trading on the secrets that Congress knows well before the market does, in the sense that if Congress knows, because you are, for example, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, that you're about to pass a massive $200 billion aid package to Ukraine, you know what to invest in terms of reconstruction, engineering, energy, gas, oil, military contractors. You know this well before the market does. And so you are insider trading on non-public information. And it's the same thing that happens at the State Department and the intelligence community level. I give the example of Tom Donilon here is just a perfect example of this. Tom Donilon was the national security advisor to Barack Obama. So that's the highest ranking position in the cabinet. That's in charge of military, statecraft, and intelligence. It's the head of the National Security Council, which coordinates the whole interagency. Tom Donilon got the CIA Director's Award. Tom Donilon was asked by Joe Biden to be the CIA director. Tom Donilon turned it down, and then Bill Burns became the CIA director. But why did Tom Donilon turn it down? Well, because he was at the time the chairman of the BlackRock Investment Institute, in charge of essentially, yes, the investment portfolio of the $10 trillion assets under management behemoth BlackRock. And now Tom Donilon was never a banker. He was at the State Department for 25, 30 years, doing everything from NATO enlargement to Germany reunification to CIA work with the CIA Director's Award to being the National Security Advisor. He was never a banker. So how to become the chairman of the BlackRock Investment Institute? Well, it's because what BlackRock does is they do the same thing Nancy Pelosi does. They trade on national security secrets because the folks around them, when the biggest money in the game is not selling oranges, it's government contracts. It's and investing on the basis of essentially pre-public market information about how the world will change. If you know the U.S. military is going to invade Venezuela, for example, well before the market does, then you know what shipping companies to invest in, what oil and gas companies to invest in, or to short. You can play both sides of the market through the hedge fund activities. You know, for example, what's going to happen to the currency of a country well before the market does. So you can do Forex speculation very successfully, like George Soros does. George Soros made his money speculating on the rise and fall of the currencies of foreign governments while he was working with the State Department to either destabilize or stabilize governments. I mean, that is the ultimate insider trading gig. Now, currently, it's not illegal for whatever reason, the same way with the Nancy Pelosi situation. It's not illegal for Tom Donilon at BlackRock to pick up the phone and call his hundreds or thousands of friends at the State Department or the CIA or the DOD to get insider information about the thought process of the State Department or CIA or Department of War, and then use that information to give BlackRock a competitive advantage over Morgan Stanley in what they trade in. This is why all the banks pick up blobsters afterwards. What is Mark Milley doing right now? Mark Milley's a banker now. Probably, again, never opened a spreadsheet in his life.
Nope.
Probably has never done a discounted cash flow analysis in his life, but he's at JP Morgan.
And Mike, what a lot of people don't know is that people that come in Congress, every single person that has come in Congress walks out a millionaire. And they only make, a couple $100,000 a year. But I'm talking, there is not a single person in Congress right now that is not a millionaire, that didn't start out that way. Like, you got AOC was in $40,000 in debt, and all of a sudden she's got $40 million. You got the Jasmine Crockett's of the world. All these people literally just want the job, one, for power, but also for money, because they can. People don't realize that there is enough tax money to fund every program we have if we actually got rid of the waste, but more importantly, the theft and the money laundering. You saw what happened, Mike, with FTX. You remember how the Democrats were sending money to Ukraine, right? Ukraine would take half of that money, invest it into FTX. FTX would then funnel that back to the Democrats through campaign contributions and Act Blue. That is one of the biggest money laundering scams I have ever seen. And you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that Ukraine put into FTX. FTX put back into the Democrats. And then FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, obviously got busted, but he's probably living in some, tropical prison or something.
Well, SBF ended up becoming the second largest political donor, I believe, in the 2020 election. $40 million, second only to George Soros's $100 million. And he also provided some contributions to Never Trump Republicans and the like. But the fact is this is one of these things where that would be great to have transparency. I want to know, for example, was given Sam Bankman-Fried's apparently familial relationship with the Gary Gensler SEC clique, and I believe there were some strange connections around his family in Stanford and that whole network. I want to know, are there any State Department cables that reference pass-through money from FTX? Did the Europe and Eurasia desk at the State Department, when it was doing its logistical planning for support for the Ukraine war, did it ever reference FTX as a as a pass-through money conduit? We have no transparency about that. And oftentimes the transparency is what gives the political push to make a law happen. So, even take something like the Epstein resolution that passed last week, where you had just, I think it was like 427-1 that it passed in the House of Representatives. That was because what has become transparent about Jeffrey Epstein has made the issue so toxic that nobody in Congress wants their name on a bill opposing it, because it's become so hot because of all of the investigative digging into Epstein and his affair. And that is what gave the political momentum and legitimacy to that. And it's the same thing.
Trump was brilliant about that, though. You see how he made them want to. The Democrats were all against releasing those files those 4 years Biden was in office. But then Trump acted, like he was against, like, no, don't release files. We're still talking about the files. He got them to want to release the files, which I thought was brilliant. Maybe.
What
do you think, actually? What's your perception of it?
I think it's very complicated. The Epstein rabbit hole in with Trump world, with the Democrats, with longtime Republican political insiders is completely vast, and I do think that the bungling of the Epstein saga has unfortunately just taken up an incredible amount of political space, and especially in the absence of other things domestically in the transparency effort. Like I said, if we had the entire documentary record of the Department of Mis, Dis, and Malinformation at DHS to pour over for 3 weeks, we wouldn't be talking as much about the failure to do Epstein disclosures, because there'd be something else to sink our teeth into that is
something of actual
extremely
substance, probably.
right. Right. To analyze, to go through, to potentially make laws to forbid happening again, to have government accountability. I mean, same thing with the State Department, same thing with USAID. No one's seen a single USAID file after all this time. I mean, Jack, Jay, have you seen a single cooperative agreement between USAID and an NGO be published?
I mean, I know Jay, I don't think Jay has. I haven't seen a single one either. But you're talking about accountability. One of the biggest things that we talk about on this show all the time is accountability and justice. You know, a lot of us voted for Trump specifically for revenge against the government, not just because of his policies and everything, but specifically because of what the government did to us the last 4 years as conservatives. You know, being purged from social media. You know, being raided in our homes at 4 a.m., having the churches raided, having people put in prison for praying near an abortion clinic. I mean, it's absolutely insane the things they did to us. Yet, I'm sure you probably already know this, but the cases against Comey and Letitia James were dismissed today. They were dismissed. These are mortgage fraud cases. Comey, Letitia James, even Eric Swalwell now is going to have an indictment on this mortgage fraud scheme. I'm assuming a lot of Democrats were in on this, but they raided Roger Stone's home at 6 a.m., full SWAT uniform, raided his home. Same thing to an ex-president at Mar-a-Lago. This is what we're talking about. Yet Trump allows Comey, 6 years to turn himself. Oh, come in next month, come in the back door. We won't do a mugshot, and then quietly, they dismiss the charges. I mean, is it Trump that is he just not going after the people that he should be? Is it Pam Bondi actually making these decisions? Because we both know that Trump has put out things telling Pam Bondi, please arrest somebody. I mean, we've seen the memes. We saw the fake text that he put out that he said he was meant for Pam, but it was actually put out on Truth Social. I think he wants it just as bad as us. Or is he just playing because there is no justice, no accountability, Mike? What do you think?
Well, let's take those one at a time. Insofar as the federal judge, the Clinton Democrat activist federal judge who just dismissed the charges today, they did so without prejudice on the basis of a technicality about the appointment of the prosecutor. To my knowledge, this is the first time a case has ever been dismissed because of the appointment of a prosecutor. I mean, this is like, he's dead to rights, guilty of the crime. I mean, the filings that Lindsay Halligan put out are absolutely, completely damning. I mean, it's the most clear-cut case of perjury you could humanly ask for. And
so it's the Letitia James case, dead to rights.
Right. Well, then, and it wasn't dismissed on the merits. It was, dismissed over some technical issue, which I don't even know, the substance of, in terms of there's some kind of Norm Eisen legal jujitsu argument about whether or not the appointment of Lindsay Halligan, who was a kind of last minute appointment, I believe. I think, the substance, I believe, of much of the perjury charges against Comey were made possible because of evidence found in burn bags by Kash Patel.
Yes.
I think months into the admin, and I think Kash wasn't even approved until something like May or June, I think, or
something like that, April, May, or something.
Yeah, April, May, June. But it took several months for Kash to even get put in, and then he finds evidence that's supposed to be destroyed in a burn bag that was kept alive by some brave whistleblower, and then it took a couple months to get the prosecution ball rolling, and that, I think, was in part because you had kind of crooked DOJ folks who were.
But how could we ever get past all of this, Mike, when we have all these Democrat judges that, first of all, anybody that gets in trouble that's a Democrat, they will find some kind of technicality to dismiss the charges. But Trump, he gets found legally, civilly liable for some rape of a woman he would never touch in real life, a woman who can't remember what happened, doesn't even know what she wore, and it was 30 years ago. How is it legal to convict somebody based on one person's testimony with no other evidence whatsoever? I mean, there should be some kind of law against that.
That case was even grosser. The E. Jean Carroll case out of New York, the the lawyers for the case back-channeled with the New York State Assembly to actually change the statute of limitations.
Yes.
I believe from 20 to 25 years, they retroactively changed the statute of limitations so that you could stretch back 25 years to even make the claim
legal
possible. I mean, you could do what in theory, I suppose you could do the same thing with all these statute of limitations issues.
So you can make laws to specifically target one person and then target that person.
They changed laws. They basically changed laws to get President Trump on the EG.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can actually make a law or change a law to target a specific person, target that person, then change the law back after he's in prison.
Well, it's actually an interesting question. I don't know whether it requires a majority or a supermajority, but if it's only a simple majority, in theory, you could change the statute of limitations because right now, I think what they're arguing, and I pray to God that this gets appealed successfully by the Trump DOJ. This is just a lower court decision on the dismissal. I can't imagine that there would be, this is not going to get appealed all the way up, not just the appellate court, but if it fails there, up to the Supreme Court. But with all these cases, you have much of this corruption happening in 2021. 2022, and you have this kind of 5-year statute of limitations. I mean, some of this, the Russiagate stuff stretches back to 2016, which is part of the issue that I think you need a kind of ongoing conspiracy in order to get past the 5-year statute of limitations. But it actually makes me wonder if there was the political will for it, given that these were, in my view, high crimes and misdemeanors. I mean, this is unbelievable what they did to the country. They launched the entire Arctic frost on the basis of trying to delegitimize the 2020 election, and they did that themselves in the 2016 election. I mean, if you're going to fight fire with fire, I would think if you could simply change the statute of limitations for these criminal statutes with a law in Congress, you could have a Republican majority and a House and draft a bill, and a Republican majority Senate ratify a bill to change the statute of limitations.
Republicans just don't fight this way, Mike.
No, they don't
fight the same way as the Democrats do. They still think this is a fair fight. The Democrats don't fight fair. They never will fight fair, ever. So that's why it seems like we're always, one step forward, 2 steps back, like we just had 2 steps back today. And Pam Bondi, I think maybe the office was dragging their feet a little bit. I think the guy's name was Eric Siebert, who was the original prosecutor, who apparently didn't want to bring charges against Comey or Letitia James. So President Trump had to step in and say, let's go, Pam, come on. And then Halligan gets appointed. And apparently they're saying that was an illegal appointment, and that's how these are getting tossed. And it's a problem. The Comey one seems like a real challenge now to get those charges, get them through, because basically this judge, I think the way it was written up, is saying that this indictment really technically never happened because this prosecutor should have been there in the first place for this indictment. And it's a problem. Letitia James, they have till 2030, I believe, but the Comey one's a problem. And Comey, just to see him walk out of there with the smirk, it's really frustrating. It burns you up.
Then tell me real quick, Mike. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead and talk about that real quick. I was going to ask you something.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Comey situation. I have to imagine this is got to be priority number one for the Justice Department, given that Comey was the mastermind of effectively the whole thing, together with John Brennan, James Clapper, President Obama himself, and that the fact that there are 30 subpoenas that were fired out in the state of Florida a few weeks ago from, I believe, the Florida DOJ, the federal prosecutors there fired off 30 subpoenas around John Brennan world. And given that that's so connected to the Comey indictments, I have to imagine that this is priority number one. But this gets to a kind of larger issue about the legal profession itself, and it's how it has been warped institutionally, in my view, by the same blobcraft apparatus that is impacting our foreign policy. I mean, if you look at the spearhead of all of these legal actions is Norm Eisen. Norm Eisen was the U.S. ambassador to the Czech Republic and spearheaded these rule of law State Department programs there to control the judges and judiciary and prosecutors. We have an entire, I don't know how you describe it, because it's not just one bureau. It's a State Department wide concept called rule of law programs, rule of law initiatives. And this phrase, rule of law, that everyone heard so much in 2021, 2022, when they were not just doing the Jan 6 prosecutions, but everything about arresting Trump, and no one's above the rule of law. And this is a State Department catchphrase and a USAID catchphrase. We have these rule of law programs to control the judges and prosecutors in pretty much every country, or 2/3 of the countries on planet Earth. I mean, I was just in the Mongolia files from the State Department WikiLeaks cables and found the rule of law programs in friggin' Mongolia to influence the judges and prosecutors there. This was how we controlled the prosecutors in Ukraine to get rid of Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor investigating Burisma, through a USAID $1 billion rule of law and governance grant that was held over the head of the Ukrainian government to do this.
Exactly.
Mike, I saw that video real quick. I just want to jump in. The other day when you talking about USAID, you basically said they take over judicial systems of countries. Now, couldn't we say that George Soros has been used in a way to take over our judicial system by this interior color revolution that's going on in our country?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Open Society Foundation is a constant partner of USAID and the U.S. State Department in the rule of law programs. Everywhere there's an Open Society Foundation or an Open Society Institute or an Open Society Forum, you're going to see programs that for so-called judicial independence. This is like a great catchphrase.
We always come up with great names.
Right. And this phrase independent just means captured by the CIA or the covert political influence arm of the State Department in whatever form that appears, through an NGO, through a university center, through a think tank, through some front or shell organization. And that's why we say independent media. How is 90% of Ukrainian independent media funded by USAID, for example? Well, do you really call it independent if it's funded by the U.S. government? Of course not. We call that state-funded media. We call that state control of media. I think I and most American civilians grew up learning in school that state-funded media is what communism is. It's what an authoritarian government does. It's what China does. It's what Mao did. It's what Mussolini did. It's what Hitler did. And yet it's what USAID does. And USAID argues if we don't control the media, then through our humanitarian fund bribery nexus, then it's people's lives it'll kill people if you don't have USAID funded investigative journalists digging up dirt on Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump in Ukraine, which is exactly what USAID paid them to do.
Did you see though how after USAID now, after all of that, and basically Politico, the New York Post, and especially the DNC lost a lot of their cash flow, the money laundering thing. And you saw how the DNC is so hard up for cash that they took out a $15 million loan the other day. Do you think, based on their policies, that they could be close to collapse?
No, I don't think close to collapse. I think that what you have is a restructuring of the money apparatus in a few key ways. So one is the private foundations are stepping up in a big way. For example, Bill Gates committed to $200 billion that he would be giving over the next 20 years to the Gates Foundation. That's $10 billion a year every year for 20 years. So USAID's budget every year was $45 billion. So that's that's a quarter of it basically, just in one donor alone. You also see a stepping up of many of the other foundations like the Knight Foundation and Ford Foundation and Omidyar Network to try to offset the funds that were coming directly from the government. And their hope is that USAID will be resurrected in 2028, or that it will be forced to operate potentially even in 2026. USAID is not dead, by the way. It's just
hibernating.
Well, right now funds are being impounded, but they're still being authorized by Congress.
Really?
There's not been an executive. There's not been any sort of. It was created by a legislative act.
So Congress hasn't taken it out.
Why haven't they stopped it?
I don't know if it requires just a simple majority or some sort of 60 vote, filibuster-proof supermajority in terms of whether it's politically feasible to do or not. But for whatever reason, it's not being done. And you have 14,000 of these folks who are fired, and they're keeping themselves busy in the NGO world. And also they're stepping up. Europe is stepping up to offset U.S. aid. You've seen Europe and the NATO networks try to increase their government expenditures. Canada is doing the same. This kind of transatlantic NATO alliance is trying to keep, because USAID was basically a combination of CIA and NATO covert action funds disguised as NGO humanitarian support for NGOs, but it's the same foreign policy agenda. USAID is kind of split between serving State Department goals, Department of War goals / NATO goals, and intelligence goals, depending on whatever it's doing. But it's got to be one of those three things. Otherwise, it can't operate. I mean, it's not a charity. It can only operate if it advances U.S. foreign policy somehow. And there's only three ways to do that: defense, diplomacy, or intelligence. And so right now you have this kind of European plus big private donor offset to the U.S. aid funds, which is keeping the network alive, although it's missing a lot of its clout, because from USAID, it had the protection of the federal government and all that entails diplomatically, militarily, and in terms of its ability to seamlessly work with the CIA and other intelligence agencies, to have access to classified documents, to have But I guess my frustration is that not a single USAID internal file has been made public this whole time.
That's insane.
Yeah. You've had contracts cut, grants cut, a huge amount of it. I think, something like 85% of the funds have been cut. There's still some foreign policy initiatives that the Trump administration, I think, sees helpful around things like Venezuela and potentially Ukraine, and those are separate issues.
Mike, before we get off USAID, I watched that. I was fascinated the other day with this Office of Transition Initiatives that you brought up, and you were talking about that there are people there on this Signal chat, still basically communicating, trying to undermine, the president, trying to do what they can to keep whatever their influence going, and I just can't believe that that's going on. Why aren't these people being looked at? You're finding it. Why hasn't the DOJ found it? What you were looking into saying what crimes are being committed here? I'm watching you do the research in real time. Why can't we get somebody in the DOJ to look into this just like you do?
Well, this gets back to what's the kind of substrate of our legal system, and that you have. If you look at something like the American Bar Association, it's overwhelmingly Democrat. I mean, it looks to me to be like 95% Democrat, and the 5% Republicans are never Trump. And then you've got a little bit of a power enclave with groups like the Federalist Society, who are not exactly, when you really describe them as pro-Trump, kind of legal. It manifests itself kind of a little bit insofar as the FedSox, kind of generation of Supreme Court short lists and helping, I think, shape the White House's decision-making about the appointment of federal judges and the like. But there is no kind of America First, robust legal presence other than America First Legal, which is Stephen Miller and Gene Hamilton's baby that they set up in 2021, which has been huge. They've done a great job. It's total game changer, game changer on everything from DEI to government censorship. And they're just an incredible organization, but they're fresh faced. I mean, they're not even 5 years old. Right. And you still have these ancient relationships between the American Bar Association and the U.S. government. I'll give you an example. There's a statute at the Department of Education that gives the American Bar Association the sole and exclusive monopoly right over credentialing U.S. law schools.
What?
So in the American Bar Association, yes, the American Bar Association, every single person, if you want to become a lawyer, you have to go through the American Bar Association.
And that's mostly Democrats.
Yes, and the American Bar Association led the crusade to indict Trump, and they still have this special relationship with the Department of Education. How is this possible? It's now that because of the American Bar Association's hold over the legal profession, and the fact that these relationships between the Norm Eisen, Mark Elias group and the American Bar Association, they leads them to do things like the 65 Project, if you know about that. That's the 65 lawyers who represented Donald Trump, and they systematically have been
working to destroy all of them. Yep.
To not just get them lawfared, but to remove their legal licenses.
Rudy
Giuliani,
and they can do it because they own the American Bar Association.
Why have they not been crushed? I mean, this is like one of my questions. I mean, the American Bar Association gets tens of millions of dollars every year from USAID and the U.S. State Department to act as the shadow diplomacy element to control the courts and prosecutors in foreign countries. Yes, it's called the American Bar Association, but it is a international blob organization. Starting in 1990, with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War, nominally, the American Bar Association began receiving tens of millions of dollars every year to send essentially American lawyers to work with foreign judges, foreign prosecutors, foreign ministries of justice, to influence them to develop their legal systems in a way that advantaged U.S. stakeholders. That was the idea. That's how they justified U.S. aid money. You would effectively bribe judges or train judges and prosecutors to pass laws to take out the State Department's enemies in the region, or to open up their markets to Wall Street hedge funds, to put their countries through privatization and shock therapy. And so there has been this very deep relationship between the State Department, the CIA, the Department of War, and the American Bar Association that stretches back decades. And it's a big part of the money gun. I mean, you see this happen all the time, where you have this judge whose wife has an NGO that's funded by USAID.
Yes, exactly.
What do you think that judge is going to rule on when it comes to a statutory interpretation about firing USAID employees?
Well, he's not going to take money out of his own pocket.
No. Right. And you saw exactly what happened with Juan Merchan and his daughter Lauren. He was overseeing the Trump case, right? The whole Stormy Daniels joint. He was overseeing that case. His daughter Lauren got millions of dollars from a Democrat NGO, or Democrats in general, sent straight to her house. And then he ruled against Trump in the case. I mean, there couldn't be more of a conflict of interest.
Right. But because of this, there's a squeeze on pro-MAGA lawyers being generated by the legal system. And so one of my concerns is the DOJ was kind of untouchable. I was close to the PPO office, the Presidential Personnel Office folks at the White House, who do the political hiring and firing for the 5.5 thousand or so political appointees across the that every White House gets to appoint at the different agencies. And DOJ in Trump 1 was completely untouchable. And I know that there has been firing of a lot of bad or rogue actors at DOJ through Harmeet Dillon and the like. But there's the question of how do you replace them with good, competent prosecutors who are have a MAGA vision in terms of their ideological predisposition.
And the ABA makes that impossible.
The ABA makes it very, very difficult. And there's this kind of holistic network in the legal profession. And there is the issue that if you sign up to this DOJ and Republicans lose in 2028, for example, are you going to be disbarred for working for the Trump DOJ the same way Rudy Giuliani or Jeff Clark or John Eastman was?
Eric Swalwell actually said, and I know you probably know about this, Mike, but Eric Swalwell, a current representative in Congress, actually said that if Democrats win the 2028 midterms, they will come after anybody that supported Donald Trump. His exact words were, "We will target anybody that supported Donald Trump." I mean, how is that legal?
Well, one of the things that has to happen evolutionarily is there has to be a kind of tit for tat institutionally. For example, if you are going to, because like I got my law license in the state of New York, and I saw what happened to Rudy Giuliani, and it terrifies you. You're like, okay, I spent how many months studying for the bar exam? How many years working for New York law firms and the like? My ability, the ability to practice is based on your ability to have a bar license.
And if you appeal, you appeal to the ABA, right?
Well, technically, the state bar associations are legally distinct from the American Bar Association, but it's a thin wall, shall we say?
Yeah,
there's a significant
not much separation.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, there is some separation, but the fact is the American Bar Association has to be completely disempowered, and the legal profession has to become independent of this superstructure. But what they can do, there's not been any of this kind of retaliatory attempt to disbar. So, for example, if you're going to represent Trump in New York, you're going to get your New York law license pulled. And so that makes it pretty much impossible, or very, very, very difficult. And you rely on kind of risk-seeking folks who are not necessarily as competent as those at a white shoe law firm to take on the case and take on 30 high-powered defense lawyers on the other side. But then there's been no attempt, for example, to do the same thing in a red state like Florida. I mean, imagine if Democrats, after leading this kind of judicial coup again to remove the bar licenses of Republicans in California, as they did with John Eastman, or New York, as they did with, like, what if no Democrats could effectively practice law in Florida because the Florida Bar Association weaponized its law license?
But we don't do any of that stuff, Mike. We do not retaliate. We don't fight fire with fire. We don't do anything.
It goes back to what we said before. We don't fight the same as they fight.
We don't do anything, Mike. And that's what's really pissing all of us off, I think.
Well, I think that a lot of this starts with transparency. Again, before you sort of know exactly what you need to understand the anatomy of the patient you're operating on before you start the surgery, or not necessarily before you start it, but certainly at some point on the operating table, you have to understand. The more granular your understanding of the anatomy is, the more you know how to micro target your own responses at the policy and strategic level. And this is where
you're an expert in transparency and censorship. That much I do know.
Right, but on the rule of law, I find it deeply troubling that we've got no transparency,
none,
around the, like, I want to see every cooperative agreement between USAID and the American Bar Association. Like every dollar of grants they've gotten in every country on planet Earth. I mean, frankly, I would not be surprised if some of these operations violated some of the FARA-like laws that exist in foreign countries around the funding of foreign entity, funding from foreign countries' governments to influence the internal political system of a country. We have that here, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. If the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China funded a rule of law NGO in America to work on judicial independence for DC federal court judges, to train them on the best way to enforce their independence from the executive branch, and so it's flooding the ecosystem of DC judges with Chinese government cash. We have a law that at least forces those NGOs to publicly disclose and report quite diligently on the interplay between them and the foreign government. Many other countries have this as well. I suspect that one of the reasons that the Biden blob fought so intensely to stop a Foreign Agents Registration Act equivalent from being passed in places like Hungary and Serbia and Slovakia was because the reveal of that, if they had to actually be transparent with foreign governments about how their own NGOs were getting U.S. government money to influence their elections, to influence their political system, to effectively control their political system, it would not only be a massive political scandal, but it might actually get a lot of these NGOs in criminal trouble with the Ministry of Justice in those countries for unreported activity. I want every single cooperative grant that the American Bar Association has ever had with USAID since the 1990s to be made public.
That
Are
would be
we
the
ever gonna get-
smoking gun. Yeah.
Are we ever going to get that? I mean, that's the thing. Are we ever going to get it? Or it seems like there's not one institution in our country that the Democrats or the left have not infiltrated, taken over, and you can't be that bad by accident. I say that all the time when it comes to Republicans, because I guess for the longest time it was the uniparty, so it was kind of protecting itself.
Oh, it's
I
all
mean,
by design. It's
right.
all
I
by
mean,
design.
right. How are you this bad by accident that basically
Mhm.
every institution, and when we finally get an America First person, Donald Trump into office, you see what we're up against, what happened under our noses for decades.
Well, it's a very bipartisan story. I mean,
Mhm.
the Democrats are obviously disproportionate in their involvement in it, but the fact is, you
There's
probably
a lot of
have 50,
Republicans too. Yeah.
yeah, probably 50% of the Republican Party at this point. And
Mhm.
coming into Trump 1, it was 99% of
Yeah.
Republicans. Trump didn't have
Exactly.
almost any allies in the Congress that he inherited in
Exactly.
2017. But the fact is this is still the relationship that you have. I mean, Republicans, the power base comes from the Chamber of Commerce, the big oil companies, the military industrial complex. All of these are massively impacted by a domestic focus on U.S. politics and an abandonment of many of these influence programs in foreign countries. I mean, how
Mhm.
many? It's hard to name a publicly traded Fortune 500 company that does not have some level of being in bed with USAID
Oh no.
or the Department of War, the Department of State. I mean, I can read you the riot act on everything from Walmart to Microsoft to Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks relies on hundreds of millions of dollars spent by USAID and the State Department and pass-through funding to NGOs to
And
secure the green belt in Africa or to secure its coffee fields in Colombia and
Unbelievable.
to help subsidize the labor and influence the labor and transportation and infrastructure for the transportation of coffee beans. Starbucks. So I mean, that's how you get to be a big multinational company and win the competition against other competitors in your industry, is because you've got Big Daddy Uncle Sam carving up your market for you. You've got government contracts secured with foreign governments because the State Department delegation marches into their office and says, you better, hey, I know you got some local coffee bean growers here, but if you want this next aid package, if you don't want us to enforce the next IMF tranche loan, you're going to sign this one with Starbucks. And then lo and behold, the Africa desk guy ends up getting a board seat on Starbucks 3 years later. But it's like this with everything. And the fact is, we are now 10 months into this administration, and I am getting increasingly frustrated that not only has the pace of these, because it's one thing if the pace of disclosure slows down because you're working on something really big and it just takes a long time to compile it.
Exactly.
But my fear is that what's happening right now is that this has just been completely lost as a focus of the admin and of all the different agencies of the admin, and they're now just focused on the day-to-day, and this opportunity could be lost forever.
Well, I want to play real quick. For both of you guys, actually, I want you both to listen. I want to play devil's advocate here for a second. Now, this is not what I think. I am a Trump supporter, but I want to play devil's advocate. And I want to hear both of your opinions about this. Okay, so let's say, how there's a lot of psyops and things that happen in America. So what would you say if I told you as a devil's advocate that Trump was a psyop, a man who is actually part of the uniparty, who they did these charges with, they did all these things with, but they made sure he didn't actually go to jail. They made sure they didn't actually hit him with the bullet. They made sure that these things happened to make him more accessible to this side of the public. But yet he doesn't do anything to them when he gets into office. Hillary Clinton was never arrested. Barack Obama, who spied on his campaign, was never arrested. There was a man, a rapper from the Fugees, who was just sentenced to 14 years in prison for funneling millions of dollars in foreign donations to Barack Obama's campaign. Trump has put none of these people in jail. You saw how soft he was on Comey and Letitia James, yet they were just immediately released. So what if I were to tell you, and again, I'm a Trump supporter, but what if I were to tell you that Trump is a psyop this whole time that a lot of people fell for?
I don't think Trump is a psyop.
I don't either. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
I mean, you take all those things one by one. Trump didn't dismiss the case against Comey or Letitia James. The DOJ, Trump's DOJ didn't dismiss it. It was a Democrat activist federal court judge.
Well, I was more talking about like the raids and the stuff. Because I mean, I know the DOJ does that or the FBI, but when Biden did it, whoever controlled Biden, it wasn't actually Biden, but whoever controlled Biden got these people to do exactly what he wanted them to do. And, you know, but the big thing is none of the big players are arrested. Remember in 2016, Trump was screaming, lock her up, lock her up. Nothing ever happened with that. Nothing ever happened with Barack Obama, who literally spied on a presidential campaign. What about all the people that stole the 2020 election? Or what about the people that actually physically tried to get him from being elected? All the horrible things they did in 2016, the FISA courts. I mean, the abuses, none of this stuff has ever been brought to bear. And you just wonder, and I'm a Trump supporter. This is just from the other side of the aisle. You just wonder if maybe the uniparty is a little more powerful and a little smarter than we thought.
Oh, I think that's true.
Well,
I think the uniparty. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that there's a kind of 225D chess where they put in Trump as some Manchurian cat. I don't think there would have been such an effort to take him out at every angle. I mean, Trump was almost bankrupted before.
But did they take him out? And did he ever go to jail for any of these things? And was he ever actually shot and killed? I'm just saying. And like I said, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm just trying to get your guys' opinions on something like this, because there's a lot of people out there that wonder only because we haven't gotten the justice that we asked for. And I tell you, Mike, right now, if we don't get any real justice by 2028, there's no way we win the midterms. We voted for justice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have internal accountability to, you know, theories for understanding the world that are proposed. And I just don't really enter that realm of speculation about Trump is some psyop Manchurian candidate. I think that.
Well, I mean, I was thinking like maybe part of the uniparty. You know how politics is. You either choose Republicans or Democrats, but it's actually all an illusion because they work together. So you don't really have a choice. It just makes the Americans think they have a choice.
Well, I mean, there's obviously something there about Trump, a part of the uniparty. If you look at the coalition level, but that's also a necessary part. I mean, Jack, if you were made president of the United States tonight.
Yes.
Here's what you're inheriting. You're inheriting the fact that you have a narrow Republican majority in Congress, a narrow Republican majority in the Senate, and everything you do as the head of the executive branch is subject to the legislative branch. This is our division of powers, and there are a sufficient number of in the middle Republicans
rhinos
who are a part of particularly the international side of the American empire, both our internal homeland, but also our external markets and influence, that they will side with the Democrats on things like the budget. They will side with the Democrats on a whole slew of things if you piss them off too much, if you don't compromise with them, if you do not put in appointees for who to be at the agencies, that say a John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, who very much comes, from this apparatus. If you don't play ball, then you will be a lame duck. You will have a government shutdown that will last 400 days. And you will not be able to accomplish anything unless you play ball with the blob. And so there is a give and take. They need the executive branch to operate to get done what they want. They don't want a government shutdown where you can't have the State Department at full capacity, influencing markets in Europe or being able to, wage a campaign in Ukraine, or being able to. They don't like having to wait for a 2-hour delay for their flights because the Federal Aviation Authority doesn't have a.
But what about his chance to actually? Okay, so he doesn't have to worry about being reelected, so he doesn't have to worry about politics anymore. What about his chance right now? You know that harboring a fugitive is illegal. It's a felony in America. These mayors and these governors that are harboring fugitives, say they're harboring fugitives, these criminal illegal aliens. He could arrest them if he wanted to. He could actually show some power if he wanted to, and he does not have to worry about re-election. So why not do that?
I don't know the technical details of those cases in terms of sanctuary cities and whether
just
it's
in general, then, just in general, because sanctuary cities are obviously not legal. But I mean, say you're a governor and you're doing whatever you can, have an ICE app or whatever you can do to harbor these illegal aliens, which are fugitives. And Trump, he has the power to arrest these people for such things. I mean, they're people just like anybody else, and it's a felony.
I don't know about those cases. I'm just not. It's not a major focus of mine in terms of
no problem. It was not the question.
But there is an easier one that appears to be what's happening right now with Bill and Hillary Clinton about apparently defying, a congressional
subpoena,
subpoena in order to appear and testify before Congress. And this was what both Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon were arrested for. And Steve Bannon, I believe, spent 4 months in jail for it as well.
Yeah.
And they moved on him right away for defying it from the January 6th committee, which was even less legitimate than our own. I mean, for the first time in history, the Congress didn't even allow the speakers appoint Republican appointees to
appoint their own. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And the first time in history that they just completely rigged the composition of it so that you had Liz Cheney as a nominal
and Kinzinger
Republican. Right. Yes. So, but the fact is I understand that now Bill and Hillary are apparently going to be testifying in December, or at least they've been ordered to. But I don't know. Did Steve Bannon get a second chance? When he defied it the first time, did they say, okay, well, if the second time, if you don't defy it, and this is one of these things where you hold up a picture of Steve Bannon and, in a ball and chain and being taken out of his house. And I mean, they were the ones who said no one's above the law. So, but that would seem to be an easy example of something that could be done that has a very clear legal precedent, given that it was
recent
just a year ago that Democrats did that to Republicans.
Here's what I'll say about President Trump. I think it's actually amazing the amount he has been able to get done with everything against him. That's how I feel about a lot of it. Because he does have pretty much everything go against him. When you mentioned a John Thune, and people say, how did John Thune? I said, John Thune was a shoo-in. That was Mitch McConnell's boy. He was next in line. It was his turn. It was almost going to be John Thune. So John Thune is not a President Trump. He's not an America First guy. The amount that President Trump has changed the party in 10 years to me is actually a miracle. The amount of America First people he's gotten to be that have gotten elected, that have followed in his footsteps and managed to get into office. The transformation in 10 years is really miraculous. I mean, I think it's going to take another 10 to 20 to really make another serious dent.
But who can take up that mantle, though?
But when you think about, Jack, where the Democrats are, and Mike, when you think about where the Democrats are, this is 120 years. And, to get to where they are now, where you basically have the DSA controlling the party in a way. So to do what President Trump has done in 10 years is truly remarkable. Even though we do get upset sometimes and we get frustrated, I still feel like, you know what, we're going in the right direction. We just got to make sure we stay in this direction. And I think if we do, we can see the stuff like Mike, the stuff you fight for. We could actually see some change in that regard. We could get the people in that'll help a guy like you, Mike, and say, look what he's doing. Let's go with this. These people, we need to look into this. the OTI. Like I was fascinated. I'm going to bring it up again. It was fascinating. I didn't even know about it. I'm just going to be honest with you. Just like you said, this is the USAID. That these people are competing with the CIA.
Tell me what Mike said.
Well, they went back to 2014. Mike went back to a New York Times article in 2014 where this was mentioned. But that's what I mean. We just need more people on our side. President Trump, just a guy like President Trump, whether it's JD Vance or Marco Rubio, they just need more help. And I think if we stay the course, we'll get it. It's got to be a little patient, even though, yes, I get frustrated too.
But I got to be honest with both of you guys. A lot of people voted for justice. After everything that happened in those last 4 years, a lot of people voted for revenge on the government and justice. I want to ask you, Mike, if those things, say we don't arrest a big name or we don't do this, do you think we could still win the 2020 or 2026 midterms?
My focus is on transparency.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We don't have any of that. If we don't have that, can we win the 2026 midterms?
Well, the transparency to me is the motor engine of the ability to do reform, the ability to politically mobilize people, to get people energized and excited to keep the momentum going. I think if the more disclosures there are, the more transparency, the more people would want to vote in the midterms for more transparency.
That's true.
Oh my God, we learned this week. Every week we're learning this and this and this about, I don't want another government to come in and shut off the valve of all the disclosures we're getting about what the CIA was doing, what the State Department was doing, what the USAID was doing, what DHS was doing. There's so many. And then along the way, I think you're going to also just find an incredible amount of, frankly, prosecutable criminal corruption in addition to the civil ones. Yeah. And it's, the prosecutor's office is not very good at investigative research. I mean, if you even look at the Epstein case, that's not what that's not what they do. I mean, the FBI does criminal investigations, but the FBI, as I mentioned, is 38,000 careers. And you can probably count on two hands and feet how many of those are dyed in the wool, who will actually pursue vigorously a criminal investigation that's tasked to them by a Cash or Dan. But I do have to jump because I need to prep for a stream that I'm doing tonight.
No. Real quick before you go, I just want to let everybody know that the reason that we wanted you on here, obviously, is you are one of the top political minds of our time, and you're advocating for transparency and the anti-censorship thing. That is honestly one of the biggest issues of our time, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate your advocating for transparency, because you are one of the big ones out there that's doing that. And because of people like you, and actually because of you specifically, we are actually getting more transparency, and we may get enough to win the midterms in 2026. So I just want you to know that I really appreciate everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Jack, and thanks, Jay, for having me on.
Absolutely.
And yeah, wishing you a good night.
Hey, no problem. I hope you have a good night. Okay. Thank you for being on. So that was great. I mean, the guy's brilliant. He's got a brilliant political mind, and it was just, I'm glad we were able to get him on, man. What was your takeaway here? What was your takeaway?
Well, listen, when you have a guy like that with that type of mind and that type of ability to I had so many questions, but I also just want to let him go.
Same here. I had a lot of questions.
I want to hear what he says next. I want to hear what he's going to get to, and and just listen to him. And just try and learn, and because a couple of times he said I was going to talk about this on my, on my video, but I'm gonna let it go.
I love that he did it here instead of doing it on his own video. He did it on our show, so that's wonderful. And I must say, before we go, I want to talk about a couple of things. Okay. Yeah. One is the video that was made by the senators that basically boils down to sedition. They were trying to convince military members not to follow the orders of the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump. And Mark Kelly is being investigated for that as we speak. And I want to thank Nate right here for bringing that up. He is actually being investigated for that as we speak. And what do you think? Do you think something will come of it? Because if he's actually investigated for that, and he's charged with that, I mean, the penalty is death. Donald Trump reposted the penalty for sedition is death.
Well, listen, Jack, here's the thing. I hope the Pentagon's looking into it, and I'm understanding they might try to kind of bring him back and try him as on the military law.
Tribunal would be wonderful.
Listen, you know what? I don't want to hear another word about it. Do your investigation and then drop the hammer when the hammer's ready to drop.
Exactly. That's what we need to do. Bondi kills us with that. She talks about it, but doesn't do anything. You're right. We need the opposite.
That's the way this is supposed to work. And I'll say this all the time. People might get sick of me saying it, where you say, that's the way these investigations are supposed to work. You're not really supposed to hear the day-to-day of an investigation ever, unless hearing the day-to-day is helping the investigation. Most of the time, it doesn't. So it's kept quiet. And the investigators do their investigating. And then when they have enough evidence, the hammer drops and you hear about it, you go, whoa, where'd that come from? So we know what Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin and the rest of them did. It's on video. They made basically a public service announcement telling the people in our military to not follow orders. And they said illegal orders. Well, wait a minute. The people in the military already know that they don't have to follow illegal orders. They didn't need you to tell them that. What you were doing is you're putting it out there to kind of cause chaos, mistrust, and try to undermine the president. So, and then at the same time, they and in that PSA, Jack, if you listen in the beginning, there's a real damning part of it where they basically accuse this administration of pitting the military against American citizens. That's outrageous. That is egregious. And the fact that when Joe Biden gave a speech with Marines behind him, cloaked in red lights,
that was
calling half the country, deplorables and a threat to democracy. Where was the PSA from the Democrats then?
That was the most Hitler-esque thing I have ever seen. That is exactly what he would have done back in the late 30s, early 40s. There's something I want to talk about real quick before we leave, okay?
Listen, take your time. Take your time. I'm good.
Okay, cool, because this is something that bothered the hell out of me, and it's in New York. I'm in North Carolina. I think you live in New York State or New Jersey or something anyway. But
some liberal place, yes.
Yeah, the liberal place. You're in some liberal place. I think it might be Washington or California. I don't remember, but it's somewhere. But anyways, you're in one of the liberal places. That much I know. But you're half the states. No, okay. So, anyways, there's a thing going out right now that this is, and I want you to hear this. This is in Queens, New York. Queens residents right now are furious because this morning, after a mob of black teens took over their street and beat the hell out of a white couple. They set the white couple car on fire and beat the hell out of them. They were trying to stop the takeover while calling 911. Well, 911 dismissively told the callers to contact 311 instead of sending police. 311 is where you just report, random city shit that's going on.
Yeah, noise complaints, stuff like that.
Yes, they were told to call 311 instead of 911 while this white couple was being beaten to death by a black mob of teens and their car was set on fire. That is unbelievable, but it happened.
Well, entirely not surprising, though, in this world that we're living in right now. And I actually didn't know about that. And if that needs to be looked into. I mean, first of all, the person that dispatched that call and rerouted the call to say it's got to go to 311.
There's actually a video.
Something needs to be done about that person. And hello, is it a training problem or was that deliberate? I'm going to go with a little bit of both. But again, we don't know. I'd like to learn more about this. I was, Jack, along these lines. I don't know if you saw the one in Chicago with this pregnant mother and her child.
Before you go there, let me do this video real quick because I don't want to do it after
you talk. Go ahead. You have the video. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to show you this real quick. This is unbelievable right here, man. Okay, so I'm going to show everybody this. This is the video of the cars being set on fire and everything. Take a look.
We'll start hip hop. Michael? GTA 6. GTA 6.
Let's fast forward it a little bit. I want to get to the end and see what's going on.
Cover your face.
See, this is them right there beating the hell out of this white guy and the couple right here.
All right.
That is absolutely unbelievable. I mean,
do we know what part of Queens that was?
No, I don't know what part of Queens it was. Just that it was Queens, New York, and they tried to call 911. 911 told them to call the non-emergency 311, even though a car was on fire and a hate crime was occurring.
Well, listen, I got a guy standing on the lawn with a bat surrounded by a bunch of people. How that gets referred to 311 is simply beyond me. That's a 911 call all the way.
Well, New York wanted to put social workers for violent incidents instead of police. So this is their workaround.
Well, Mom Donnie talks about that all the time, where he wants to send police to, certain calls that, trust me, you don't want to send social workers. You need to send police. If you want to tell them to take them, once the police handle it, they can take them to the hospital and the social worker could take over from there. But
exactly,
this is not going to work out very well. You're going to start to see things spiral out of control if this actually goes into effect, where you're going to see a lot more of what we just saw. And that's not what we want. The thing in Chicago was it's a woman and she's pregnant, and I believe she might be disabled. Something might be going on, but she's with her
child
kid.
Was disabled, yeah,
or one of them was disabled, and they're getting attacked by Jack. These are kids. Little I am watching this. What is going on in our society where we have children ganging up on a pregnant woman and her child and beating them, and nobody's stopping it. I just don't understand what's going on. Where are the men in that area? Who's there? Who's calling 911? Anyone? What is going on? It's out of control. Brandon Johnson, again, the mayor of Chicago. I'll say this at least for Mom Donnie. At least he went to the Oval Office. At least he was willing to have a conversation. Okay. Has Brandon Johnson ever been? I'm sure President Trump, if Brandon Johnson wanted the conversation, President Trump would have it. He'll talk to anybody.
You want to tell you? You want to know how you know there's cheating going on? I'm going to give you a straight example, okay? Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, is the most disapproved public official in the history of American politics. His approval rating is 7%.
Incredible.
He was reelected. His approval rating was 7%, and he was re-elected. That's how you know there's cheating going on. And I want to tell you that there was a person in Chicago set on fire on a subway train. It just happened, a couple of days ago. There is pictures and video of that person being set on fire on a subway train. And I've got video of that pregnant beating real quick that you talked about. I'm going to show everybody real quick, because people need to see these things, Jay. If they don't see these things, out of sight, out of mind. We have to show these people. We have to shock the conscience, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put it out there. I want everybody to see this real quick. This is exactly what he was talking about. Also, excuse the language. It's part of the video.
My brother said,
oh, hell no, those ain't asses.
Look at them bitches, bad crackhead.
That's the pregnant woman and her disabled child.
Yep.
Other bitch more.
I mean, these teens are surrounding them for no reason whatsoever. And then it gets to this point.
Oh my God.
That's her hair right there. You see that hair on the ground?
Yeah.
That is her hair that they ripped off of her head. I'm not going to show the actual fight because it's too much. But that's the hair that they ripped off of her head. She was a pregnant woman with her disabled 5-year-old, 6-year-old child.
And the other shocking part is that these are children that are doing this.
10, 12-year-olds.
What's going on at home? What is happening at home when we have children that think it's okay to gang up on a woman, and a pregnant woman and her child, and beat them? I don't get it. Where is the conscience? Where is the morality?
Forget the morality. Well, the morality is unbelievable. What about the purpose? What was the motive for such an action? I mean, you got a pregnant woman walking home with her disabled child. What in your thought process says, hey, let's beat the hell out of them?
I don't know. I've never thought of something like that. And I don't know anyone, thank God, that ever thought that would be okay. But apparently we have more people in this country who think it's okay now. And it's a decay of our society. It's the family unit that's gone. It's so many things, so many things.
Let's be honest here, Jay. Let's be honest here. It is a specific not geographic. It is a specific demographic. Okay. Let's be real. If we're going to be real, let's be real. It's a specific demographic.
Yeah, and you know what? There's got to be something done. And I'm not talking about I'm talking about before it gets to this, something has to change. Something has to change before we get here. What's happening isn't working. What this government, what our government is doing to think that in a way they think they're helping our government. We're not helping. We're failing. Okay,
there's no
government is failing.
That's why it's getting worse. There's no consequences for those kids right there. There will be no consequences. They have realized that if you're under 18, you can commit whatever crime you want, and there will be they will take you home to your mom. Remember when I told you that person in Charlotte, a kid was 15 years old? Maybe I didn't tell you this.
Yeah, you did. The kid, he had like millions of arrests.
He was arrested 108 times. But he was between the age of 13 and 15. He was arrested 108 times, brought home to his mom each and every time. There is no consequences for juveniles.
None. And juveniles, there aren't consequences for adults.
You got that right.
Right. Why would a juvenile? And you know what? This is part of the reason. If you want to talk demographics, I think this is part of the reason why President Trump did so well with black men.
I think they want it out of their system too. They don't want that shit in their neighborhood.
No. And I think that's why he did well with Hispanic men to some extent. And the immigration issue also has something to do with that as well. And the immigration also has something to do with as well with black men. But I think that, people are tired of it. They're just tired of it. It doesn't matter what color they're getting sick and tired of this. And something, like I said, the federal government's failing. The local governments are failing. And we know who's failing, Jack? Who's been running Chicago for decades? Who's been running New York City?
The Democrats. That is why local elections are so important. But a lot of people don't vote in local. They wait for the presidential election. You have to vote in local elections. Believe it or not, the local elections are more important than the presidential election. Let me tell you why. You know how George Soros took over America? You know how he was able to get the crime to rise everywhere? Because he realized you don't have to try to get the laws changed. All you have to do is change how the laws are enforced. If you can get prosecutors in there that won't enforce any of the laws, you spend millions and millions of dollars. Chicago, Atlanta, New Orleans, Los Angeles, New York, Detroit, Baltimore, St. Louis. If you can get them in there and they do not prosecute, crime will rise like crazy. That is how he one of his biggest things was that he wanted to destroy America, Jay. He said, I hate America and I want to destroy everyone in it. And that is exactly what he figured out. You do not have to change the laws. All you have to do is pay for people to get in that won't enforce them.
True. And it's basically destroying the country from within. You don't have to fire a shot, right? And it's for me to look at this stuff coming from former law enforcement and seeing what's going on out there and seeing how people they get arrested and they're back. It's really it's disheartening. It makes you angry. It frustrates you because this is very fixable. And like you said, you just enforce the law. Enforce the penalties that are supposed to be there. This stuff stops. The broken windows theory, Jack.
100%.
That's what happened when I got on the job in 1996 in New York City when Rudy Giuliani was taking over. He took over a little bit before that, but he brought at that time I think it was Bill Bratton.
He was the freaking guy. That man should have a pass to do whatever he wants in the rest of his life. Instead, he's been broke by lawsuits.
Well, what happened is the broken windows theory was brought back. Every little crime, people get arrested. You arrest little, and it stops the big ones from happening. And that is absolutely true. I've always said it shouldn't be called the broken windows theory anymore. It should be the broken windows law because it's that sound. It works. Period.
And you saw how if you arrest, the small crimes, like you said, it stops. But you know who did that? The mayor. That tells you right there that like the mayors and the president, they can get people to arrest people, which makes me wonder why Trump hasn't gotten them to arrest Hillary or Obama or any of those people. That still bothers me, and it's going to bother the hell right out of me. But let me tell you something. People like Brandon Johnson, people like, any of the other mayors.
Karen Bass, name them.
Karen Bass. Well, what about the Ma'am Dami? Is Karen Bass the one that just came in Seattle?
No, Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles. Then you have the one in Seattle who is a DSA. I forget her name.
Yeah, what's her name? She is a Democratic socialist, just like Ma'am Dami. The socialism is taking over. And let me tell you, the number one communist of all time, Vladimir Lenin, actually said the goal of socialism is communism. That is the goal. Socialism is never the ends. It's never the ends. Okay, it's never the ends that the means are trying to get to. Communism is. And right now, you have two people that call themselves socialists, but communism is what they are. And the resolution actually just condemns socialism. But what the hell good is a resolution?
Well, you know, I don't know how much teeth it actually has.
It has none. It's
right,
symbolic.
Well, you know what the symbolic at least showed us? You had, I think, 98 Democrats or somewhere along that.
Yeah, there was 86 Democrats that actually voted for it. Yeah,
right, but 98 apparently didn't. So there you go. That's who tells you. You know, you think AOC's ever going to vote to condemn socialism? Of course not.
She's a socialist.
She's a socialist. So, but who are the other ones that have never actually officially declared themselves as socialists that couldn't vote to condemn socialism?
Anyone that didn't vote to condemn it probably is a future communist.
Yeah, the mask came off, I guess. Maybe that was one of the better things about that vote. I'm glad
maybe that's the point of the vote. That might have been the point of it.
It might have been. And when you talk about local, I've been saying this now. You got to make sure your dog catcher is America first at this point. Yeah, I don't care who's running for what office near you. You got to make sure that those people are America first. You got to vet as best as you can. Vetting is a huge problem. Huge. Listen, we're gonna have Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving that seat. That's a whole nother topic. We won't get into that now. But we need to make sure whoever runs in that special election, we got to vet and make sure that that person's going to actually be America first and stick with America first.
Well, let me tell you, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm going to tell you why. A sheriff is another thing that people elect in their counties, whatever it have you. Sheriff is something that is another local election that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but is extremely important, and I'm going to show you why. There is right now the new sheriff of, I want to say Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm not 100% sure, but it is in Minnesota. He is Somalian. And he's a police officer for Somalians First in the U.S. And he is a sheriff of the county that Minneapolis, Minnesota is in. And I'm going to show everybody right here. I want you to check this out. He is Somalia First. And I want you to hear what he says real quick, too. It's going to boggle your mind right here. Because this guy, he actually talks about white people, too. Okay? And this is a sheriff. And that's why I said local elections, just like you said, are extremely important. So take a look at this. Can you guys see this? I'm going to put it up here real quick. Okay, here we go. Take a look at this and listen.
markaan haddaan askarnahay Soomaaliyeed ininka ayni shaqeynaa habeenii maalinba ininka ayni taaganahay fahanteen horta sida ogtihiinba wadankan anaga qaxootinaan imaadnay askar Soomaaliya ma jirin marka hadda anaga markii nala haygareeyay waxay noqotay inaan dadkeena u shaqeyno dadkii dhaqankii ma fahmeynaa luqadii ma fahmeynaa culture-kii ma fahmeynaa marka qofka kale mataqaana ajnabiga abadaanka iyo anaga waa kala duwanahay because qofkii gaabkii waxa with build that bridge kaas ma fahantay marka insha Allah.
He said that we work for Somalians, not, you know, we understand the white people and the others, but we work for Somalians.
Yeah, that's no good. Oh, man. Listen, again, everybody, sheriff is the highest elected law enforcement officer or official in the United States is your sheriff. So that's a lot of power, tremendous amount of power. What I'm seeing and hearing there, all right, first of all, this whole thing, we work, you can't do that and apply equal justice. You can't talk like that. And now I'm going to say you're going to apply equal justice. If somebody,
go ahead.
No, like if I said that, why would anybody believe that I'm going to apply equal justice on people that? Well,
what if he pulls over a Somalian? Is he going to arrest the Somalian? But what if he pulls over a Somalian with a white guy in the passenger seat? And he lets the Somalian go, but he arrests the passenger. That's what it sounds like he's going to do to me.
We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. Will we hear about it, though? That's another thing. Are we going to even hear about it?
That's the thing.
That's another
We are
thing.
the media now. We have to let everybody know.
If we hear about it, we'll absolutely let everybody know. Now, the problem is, this is the stuff Mike Benz, our guest, was talking about, this transparency. It goes around everything. I mean, he's tireless. I mean, he's every day digging into the State Department and everywhere else. And I'm watching his videos, and he's doing research on the fly. It's incredible. But he's one guy. I hope
guys. That's why we're better.
You know what I mean?
Take a look at this. No, take a look at this. I want you to read this real quick. This is on our first show together. Go ahead and read that.
It says, "Oh my God, you guys are so good. This show is awesome. Again, can't wait for next Monday. Congratulations to you both." Thank you. Who's that? KN. Thank you, KN.
Yes,
really exactly.
That tells you right there. This is our first show together officially. And we got people that like the show. And, I really appreciate any comments that say, hey, we love the show. We love you guys. I'm going to put them up on here because that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like what I'm doing matters. And I hope it does the same for you.
Oh, absolutely. Any type of stuff like that, please put it up there. I mean, we love that. It's encouraging. It's the confidence. It's everything. And hey, listen, if you have constructive criticism, let us know too. DM us. We'll answer it. If anything like that, I'm all in for that. Any kind of stuff like that. I'm always willing to listen to well thought out, rational criticism. I have no problem with that. No,
absolutely. But we do like we
love compliments more.
Yeah, we do like compliments too. So you can always give us compliments. We won't mind. And so make sure you visit secretamericalive.com. That is our website. You can also follow me at Jack Danger Live. You can follow Jay Gatling at Pinionsberry down there on the screen below. I had fun tonight. I mean, hell, we did an hour and 41 minutes. The show is usually an hour long. We did an hour and 41 minutes. There's 3,000 people that are watching us. So I really appreciate everybody that's been watching this show. You got anything to say before we go, Jay?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's welcomed me to your program, and I want to thank you, obviously, for
our program.
Well, yes, well, your program is now our program. Thank you, Jack.
There you go.
And I want I thank you for having the confidence in me to take our program to the next level with you. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we want everybody to know. I want to thank everybody that has reached out and congratulated me on this amazing venture that we're on. And it's only going to get better from here. So I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, everybody. Thank you.
And that's really wonderful. It has been great. I mean, this was our first official show together. We did it with, a huge name in Mike Benz. It went really well. I think he had a lot of great information. And I like that you and I were able to talk for about 20 minutes or so afterwards. And, we really have something good going here, something big. And I want everybody to know that this is a permanent thing with me and him. You're going to be seeing a lot of us. This show is going to go on for years. Not only that, though, we are eventually going to expand. We are going to make this into a brand, into an empire. So get used to seeing Jay Gatling, get used to seeing Jack Danger, and get used to seeing Secret America. I want to thank you all for watching us. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a good night.
You've been listening to Secret America.